This next time, I just want to briefly just walk through our vision as a life group ministry. You have an opportunity to talk through this in this upcoming week's lesson, the vision lesson. I really don't want y'all to spend so much time talking about my vision for the life group ministry as a whole, as I do want you talking about your life group, your vision for your life group as a unique group. It fits into, hopefully, one of these things, but I want us just to talk through that. These 5 goals, and some of them are really just one of them is pretty far-reaching and has a lot to do with outside circumstances, and that's the first one, and that's this. I want us to reach an average of 450 in-person life group attendance. I believe that is a reachable goal. We were at about 414 before COVID. Last Sunday, though, we had about 231 in person. Now, I understand we're in the middle of a pandemic. I'm not expecting people to do that. But I'm hopeful that the pandemic will kind of come to some kind of resolution in this upcoming year. If not this year, the next year. If not the next year, the year after that, or we'll be here until Christ comes back and talking about COVID-19. I don't know. But if we're going to reach an average of 450 in-person life group attendance, that means a few things. One, we need to be intentional to re-engage those who've been joining with us digitally. We have to have a strategy for those who have pulled back and are engaging digitally. We need to be thinking through, how can I minister to them and move them back to in-person gathering? And they may be waiting on the vaccine. They may be pilling around right now. Who knows? I don't know what people's mindsets are and everything. But let's just say people are waiting for the vaccine. They get the vaccine. Then we have to think through, how can I minister to these people, and when is it appropriate for me to engage them in these conversations? Sometimes we may have to have difficult conversations. Sometimes we may have to have it's just a phone call or a note or something. But we just need to be thinking through strategically how we're going to re-engage people who have pulled away and have chosen to engage us digitally. And then we need to be evangelistic. If we're going to increase our average attendance, we need to be introducing new people to Christ and His church, and then we need to be on the lookout for guests. So we just need to do that, and realistically, we won't reach an in-person of average of 450. I got tongue-tied. Realistically, we will not reach an average attendance of 450 if we do not multiply new groups. It's going to be very difficult to add just the number of people to each of our existing life groups without multiplication. We're going to need to multiply new groups. My group has multiplied out of Clark and JD's group. They sent out 4 people, and we've been able to reconnect 6 people who have pulled away from life groups but are now re-engaging in this, and we've been able to connect 2 new couples. So that's 10 people that we've been able to re-engage or just engage for the first time into life group. That's the type of ministry that happens through multiplication. It was painful, and it still is painful. Multiplication is one of those things that just kind of stinks for a moment. But another example, Stephen and Todd were in the same life group for a long time. They've now they're ministering to more people apart from one another than they were going to be able to minister together. You could say the same thing about Al and Keith's group. You could say this, tons of groups. So we need to be thinking through multiplication. And thinking through that. So I would like for us to multiply 2 new life groups this upcoming year. And I would also like to think, when we're thinking about multiplication, not just think about adults, but thinking about our student ministry too. Or our preschool ministry. It might be that in our children's ministry they're pretty lock solid. But it might be that we are mobilizing adults in our life groups to really engage in the nursery at the 9:30 hour. And they're just owning that as their ministry. And we're sending them out into the nursery. And we're mobilizing and multiplying in that way. Or it might be that we're multiplying teachers into student ministry. That's kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, but you and Susan, you kind of started the men's group and she went into the student ministry kind of around the same time. Is that correct? Yeah. And that's kind of that kind of fruit of multiplication. She has a thriving ministry in student ministry and is doing awesome work there. So that's we just need to be thinking holistically, how can we build up the body of Christ at Meadowbrook? I'm a fruit of Meadowbrook student ministry. I was made a disciple of Jesus Christ through the proclamation of the gospel through our student ministry. I was called to ministry at an event that our student ministry was doing. I was developed as a student to be a minister of the gospel through student ministry and through college ministry. So we just need to be thinking in those ways, not just thinking adult life groups, though we need to multiply adult life groups, but also be thinking into the other generations at our church. And then, so I just went out of order. That's 1 and 4. And then I would like to see, as we've been talking a little bit about evangelism I would really like to see every life group member share the gospel with at least one person this year. I mean, that is an easy goal in 2021. It sounds like it's a difficult person, but as disciples of Jesus Christ, if we're leading people to do this, sharing the gospel, though intimidating, should be just an overflow. I mean, if every life group member share the gospel with at least one person, a peer, in the relationship circle in 2021, think about what God could do through that. God has been working from eternity past towards people in salvation, and we get to be a part of that through evangelism. We participate faithfully and trust God with the results. If we can move people in that way, think about what we could see God do in this church and in this community. I mean, part of that might be having a list of people that you regularly pray for, practice sharing the gospel, having things like some evangelism trainings, sharing stories of evangelism, knowing that every instance of evangelism is a successful instance of evangelism. Anytime the gospel is proclaimed, that was a good day. And moving people to think in that way to where they're not so caught up with, oh, what if they just say no, or what if they don't respond? Most people probably won't. But successful evangelism is just proclaiming the gospel in faith and the power of the Spirit. And we trust God with the results. And then pray for opportunities for effectiveness, and then model that as a leader. Model that as a leader to do that. And then I'd like to see the start of a discipleship movement in life groups that's lived out in our homes and spreads throughout our community. Now, this is the most kind of nebulous goal that I have, but I would really like us to see evidence this year and the years ahead that we see discipleship movements that come from our life group ministry that we're seeing in the homes. We're seeing parents making disciples of their kids who are going into the schools and making disciples of their schools at their schools, and it's spreading throughout the community. And then I'd like us to multiply 2 new groups, and I really would like for us to really take ownership of some ministry. I put 2 to 4 times a year. That's really just a placeholder. I really would like each life group to really just take ownership of ministry and move towards that. Now, I know with COVID, that's kind of can be some difficulty right now, but identify something that your group is passionate about and just be intentional to put it on the calendar and just stick to it. You don't have to have everyone show up. Even if half your group shows up, that's a win. And this could be also an opportunity to connect new people to your life group as well. Think of it in those ways as well. So that's the vision for life group. And I just want us to close with a little bit of discussion about, if you flip over to the next page, and I forgot to mention this when I was talking about culture. If you want to change the culture of your life group, one of the things that you're going to have to do is you're going to have to create a dissatisfaction with the way things are. You're going to have to create a dissatisfaction with the status quo. Unhealthy cultures are marked by one thing, is that they're comfortable with how things are. And you're going to have to shake that up a little bit. And you're going to have to make people be dissatisfied with the way things are and help them move towards that. Nehemiah is not a book about leadership. It's much better than that. But there's some good principles for leadership that you can learn from Nehemiah and applying and living by faith. And one of the things that he does is he creates a dissatisfaction with the way things are in Jerusalem. And he leads them to rebuild the wall. Now, there's much more significant things in what God is doing than Nehemiah being a good leader. But that is one lesson that we can learn from his life.